Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spettin, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to get into several recent promotions in the Orioles minor league system, including Enrique Bradfield Jr. from Double-A Chesapeake up to Triple-A Norfolk, as well as several others of note. And really what will probably be one of the last big batch of promotions that we have during the season as we enter the final weeks of Delmarva and Aberdeen slates. And we'll get into all of that on tonight's episode. But first, we want to start this out, as we like to do every episode, by welcoming a new member to our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, this late in the season that is over, as far as the Major League team is concerned, we still got people coming out to support us. So greatly appreciate it. Scott Snyder has signed up for a year at the AAA level. So really fantastic. Thank you, Scott. Got your message. Appreciate it. And hope you enjoy the content.
And right now is a good time to become a patron, because later this week, Bob, Nick, and myself will be dropping our monthly update of our top 50 list for September. And you're not going to want to miss that. And several players who probably are going to be on that top 50 have moved up a level. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we saw several promotions at the end of last week's series in the minor leagues. And those include outfielders Enrique Bradfield Jr. and Reed Trimble going up from Chesapeake to Norfolk, while Thomas Sosa will go from High A Aberdeen up to Chesapeake, where he'll be joined by Zane Barnhart. Jordan Sanchez, meanwhile, making the move up from the FCL to Delmarva. This is one that we suspect would have happened a little bit earlier in the summer had it not been for an injury that Sanchez suffered late in the year. Nevertheless, he will get to call up to Aberdeen, to Delmarva, while Joe Glassy gets to move up from Delmarva to Aberdeen, the right-hander who's put up very good numbers this season. So, Nick, I will start with you here. This is kind of an interesting group of guys that are getting to move up here. You have Bradfield as the headliner, but several other prospects of note, including some kind of high-ceiling, very toolsy but raw players in Sosa and Sanchez, as well as a couple of intriguing relievers.
Yeah, I guess it's just to start with just Bradfield. Like I said on a recent episode, probably last week, Bradfield's just, when he's been on the field, he's been pretty good. 124 WRC plus, way fewer ground balls. You might have had some questions about the hit tool last year, but had a strong end to the year. Felt really good about where he's going to be at, and then this year just kind of wrecked by the hamstring injuries, obviously, but still feel really good about this season. Definitely wouldn't call it a wash by any means. He gets promoted to AAA to close out the year, gets a couple more weeks. They have 4 more weeks. Delmarva and Aberdeen wrap up at the end of this week, and then Bowie, 2 weeks later, and then Norfolk at the end of the month. So gets his season extended. Still think he's a prime candidate to go to the Arizona Fall League as well to continue to get more at bats. And yeah, like this year, again, not a wash, but I imagine a lot of people probably a little frustrated because we were hoping to see Bradfield push for a major league job at this point in the year. Instead, the Orioles season went as it did, and Bradfield was hurt most of the year, but you push it back to next year. I think it's no harm, no foul. Like he's still 25% above league average across more than 300 plate appearances in Double-A in total, going back to last year. So, not going to like daydream about unrealistic expectations about Bradfield's bat and what it could become, but I think it's what we've seen is pretty good and leaves me pretty optimistic going into next year. That I also don't think he's a guy that like you're going to see them wait until the end of the year. If he has a good final month here, he has a good fall, he has a good season next year back in Norfolk, they're not going to wait, because I see his odds of being 2027 Rookie of the Year pretty low, considering his profile and who he is. But he could be a guy who could bring some electricity to the Major League club probably early next year. So,
yeah, when he's been on the field, he's been performing pretty well. Like Nick said, batting 270 with the 333 BABIP, and with his speed and bunting ability, I think that's probably close to at least what he'll be able to sustain. 15.4% walk rate, 17.8% strikeout rate. Those numbers are good. Highest ISO of his career at 117, but still popped a couple of home runs this year already. And yeah, I think you could even tell when he came back the first couple times before the final injury stint that he had, that he wasn't stealing as many bases as he did. Obviously, last year had 74 combined between high A and double A. He has 26 on the season now, but I feel like in the month of August alone, he was 14 for 15 and really started picking up like after this last trip. So hopefully that means that the hamstring is at least fully healed. And yeah, he had nothing left to prove at double A. This probably would have happened around June or July if he's healthy all year, but this is where it's at now. So he gets some valuable experience coming up at the AAA level. And yeah, I think it probably delays his major league debut to second half of next season, maybe the September call up area, maybe I don't think he's really going to be a top like rookie of the year candidate prospect, but something tells me the Orioles, if he's performing well, they'll just do it anyway, just like with Beavers. I doubt Beavers is going to be one of the betting favorites, but Bradfield, I'm thinking cup of coffee and the next year. And then hopefully 2027 is when he's ready to at least be a big part of a contending team in Baltimore, if not the everyday center fielder.
Yeah, I agree with what you both said there. And to go back to Nick's point, yeah, this is not, I think, the season anybody would have drawn up for Bradfield coming into the year, because the expectation, the hope was that he would be performing at a high level at AAA by this time of the season, maybe even a little bit earlier. And the Orioles would be in playoff mode or preparing for the playoffs. And you would possibly have Bradfield there as a weapon off the bench in the postseason with his speed and his defense. That's obviously not going to happen now for a multitude of reasons that have to do with Bradfield's health over the course of this season. The major league teams struggles during the year, but I think it is important to point out, as you both did, that when Bradfield has been on the field this year, the bat has generally been good. 124 WRC plus in 50 games is double A level. Certainly there's room for improvement there, but I think that given the circumstances of this year, you have to give him credit in that this is not going to come out to be a complete wash. He's still got to AAA. There's still an opportunity for him to go to the fall league. I agree with Nick. He should be out there. And a chance for him to, yeah, he's not going to be a contributor in the major leagues at the beginning of the 2026 season, and maybe not even the first half, but there's still a path for him to force his way into that conversation at some point next year. Let's go to Trimble now. And Trimble's case is a little bit different because he does have some AAA time this year. You go back, drafted by the Orioles in 2021. Trimble has always been seen as a guy with a high ceiling, but injuries have really stalled his development to this point. And although he has missed time this season, he's generally been productive on the field when he's been on the field this year. I don't know that any of us are necessarily looking for a bounce back from Trimble at this point, but what can he show us at AAA over the final month of the season?
I think I'm actually getting pretty excited about Trimble, especially if he's going to be able to continue to stay healthy, which obviously he has missed some time this year again as well, but definitely the most healthy he's been. And I feel like he really started to show it. Let's see, with Double A, it seemed like he had some really bad luck. Maybe no, it doesn't look like it. 290 BABIP, maybe it bounced back, but I feel like he was having some bad batted ball luck, and he got scorching hot somewhat at some point in the second half of July into August, and ends up batting 257 there with a 855 OPS, which is good for a 135 WRC plus in the month of August overall, including some significant time at AAA, which I thought was going to turn out to be his permanent promotion, but he did get sent back down to AA for a week or two. But for the month of August, he's batted 329 with a 1,046 OPS, 6 doubles, a triple, 5 home runs, 12 walks, 6 stolen bases, 183 WRC plus between AA and AAA. Just think, I mean, he's 25, so it's kind of now or never, but kind of making a push for a Rule 5 protection. Doubt it happens, but maybe a case to be a rare position player selected in the Rule 5 draft and given a shot, because he's holding his own in AAA, 1 for 4 tonight, and on the season, 62 plate appearances, batting 259 with a 765 OPS. This is 105 WRC plus, so hanging in there in his first taste. Not much acclimation going on. Plays a good defense, so Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I thought it was just weird. He moved up to AAA at that time, and then they're like nothing, and then now it's like it's official. He's in the Rockabaco tweet. He gets the graphic then from Bowie moving up, but um, yeah, I think that was also the time where there was a lot of like major league and AAA roster shuffle. So needed some spots, didn't need him. Whatever. He's there now. Yeah, I always forget that, oh, we can like pull up Statcast cards and stuff of the AAA guys. And so, because really, I mean, Basayo and Beavers have been the top guys. And but a guy like Reed Trimble, it's like, all right, let's take a look. I mean, it's not bad. Like he can pull the ball in the air with the best of them. I think he's like 100th percentile in his 14 game sample. But it's 109 max EV, which 32nd percentile. So for reference, Dylan Beavers was 111 and 72nd percentile when he came up. So I mean, he's not a noodle batter or anything. He can hit the ball with some authority. He can pull the ball in the air from the left side. We know he's got the athleticism. He's not the guy that I was really high on coming out of the draft. He's second round pick, played the infield, played center field, was a threat on the bases as well. But the fact that he's gotten back to this point and is producing as he has this season has been like a pretty remarkable story, because he's had some pretty major injuries throughout his career, and they just kept coming and coming. So, yeah, good to see him here. I think, if anything, he could just be really good AAA depth. This is a guy where if you need to bring him up for a week or two, Cowser does something dumb next year. Hopefully he's out for 2 weeks. You bring up Reed Trimble. It's not a black hole in the lineup there. You feel pretty good about what he can do. So, yeah, it's considering this is a guy who I didn't think we'd ever see him out of A-ball just because of the injuries. Strictly the injuries were going to like end his career, and he'd be one of those what if stories. He set himself up pretty nicely here to have a pretty good career.
You actually just reminded me let's pull up Prospect Savant, see what they have with the percentiles with the Statcast data, because we've only had like the two main guys to look at that for. But encouraging sign is swinging strike rate is right around league average, around 12%. Zone contact 65th percentile. Exit velocity, average exit velocity 66th percentile. So he's hitting the ball hard. He's not too bad in anything other than expected batting average, and slug is lower than what it currently is. So maybe some good luck in his favor there. But yeah, like you said, great depth between him and Judd Fabian. If those are two guys that you can dip into AAA for an outfielder, or maybe be a fifth outfielder for a small stretch of time if you need it, I think you could do way worse.
And let's go now to the guys who are moving up to Chesapeake, because although they won't get a full month there, we will see them for the next few weeks. And that's Griff O'Farrell, Thomas Sosa, and Zane Barnhart. And all of them this year have dealt with either injuries or struggles in some ways. O'Farrell, for the first 3.5 months of the season, really scuffled the plate, but then seemed to turn things around during a recent 29-game on-base streak. He's riding that momentum up to Chesapeake. Sosa, meanwhile, missed time earlier this season because of an injury. And Barnhart, a reliever who weak tabbed coming into this season as a possible breakout candidate, got off to a slow start at Aberdeen, but has really turned things on of late. Since the beginning of July, the right-hander has posted a .40 ERA across 22 and a third innings with 30 strikeouts against 7 walks. He had a 3.72 ERA overall during his time with the Ironbirds. So looking at those three players, and I'll start with Nick here, what have you seen from those guys in the last few weeks that maybe prompted this promotion, and what can we expect from them in Chesapeake over the final weeks of the season?
The Griff O'Farrell thing, just I'm glad he's been performing the way he has these last couple of weeks. I'm not like shooting him up my rankings. I'm not getting super stoked. He is becoming who we were all hoping he would become, which is really good. Like, this is just a guy who, again, same thing. You drafted him knowing that I think you had a hole in the system. And we even asked John Muley directly about Griff O'Farrell, and he pretty much said the same thing. Like, this is a guy who you need guys like Griff O'Farrell in your system. They're very nice to have. Maybe the ceiling's not there, but still, this is someone who a lot of organizations are going to covet. And so I think we're starting to see that, though. Someone who could, at his peak, be a major league utility guy, but if anything, just be that AAA guy who can play a couple different positions around the infield. And same thing like with Reed Trimble, but I think even a better quality depth piece. If he has to come up and spend some time in the infield, you feel pretty good about the defense you're going to get. You feel good that he's going to work. He's going to be a pesky at bat for a lot of opposing pitchers. He's not going to be a super threat on the bases, but he's going to. He's athletic enough and he's smart enough. Everything was like nothing really stood out, but he's just so fundamentally sound in so many different areas that he's was able to get a lot of good results at UVA and should translate well to the pros, and which it's looking like it is right now. So. Yeah, it's good to see him fulfill this role now. But the Barnhart, been super high on Barnhart. This was going back to like last year, just not really knowing too much about him. And then I think he went home and he did some interview and he talked about the increased velo and putting on some weight, adding a couple of ticks to the fastball. He was hitting like 98, 99, I think, adding a couple off-speed pitches. A lot of good work there, and he came out in the Arizona Fall League. We got to see some data on him, pitched really well out there, and then he's just shoved this year. The last 2 months, especially at 1 earned run over the last 2 months. Smaller kid, but smaller frame guy, but big extension, pretty decent fastball velo and all that stuff. But yeah, it's glad to see him get the promotion there. And Sosa, like we're gonna talk about Sosa a little bit more later on in the next episode, so I'll kind of hold my thoughts there, but. I'll just say I've questioned Sosa for a long time. Like, are we too high on him? Like, what exactly? This is just conversations I have with myself. What exactly has he done to prove that he should be above some of these other names that I'm putting behind him? Does he truly belong here? Am I still just living on this high of what that ceiling is? The fact that he seems like a really lovable guy, someone who fans, if you get to know him, you're going to love him. But what is he really doing? And then the Orioles. Even though he missed 2.5 months, 3 months, he missed pretty much the entire season, and he's still only 20 years old. The Orioles went ahead and promoted him to Double-A, and then tonight he hits a home run in his first Double-A at bat. So it's like, all right, Orioles are telling me to stop questioning that. So yeah, good to see all three of those guys get to Double-A.
The more time passes, the more I'm embracing the return of Frederick and getting rid of Aberdeen because. Wow, who knows how bad it's really messing these guys up. At least maybe it's something over the last couple of years. Maybe the switch to all turf has really just nerfed. The turf has nerfed the offense in Aberdeen. I don't know, but yeah, immediate success for Sosa and O'Farrell in their first game. Sosa 2 for 4 with the homer, O'Farrell 2 for 3 with a walk and a double. And O'Farrell, it's really interesting because in let's see. There was a nice stretch here from July 23rd to August 20th, which is almost 98 plate appearances, almost 100 plate appearances. Batted 349, 860 OPS, 14.3% walk rate, only a 9.2% strikeout rate. Stole 17 bases in 17 attempts, 158 WRC plus, and then over the last week and a half of play, 33 plate appearances from August 21st to before today. 33 plate appearances, 2 hits, both singles, only 3 walks. Caught stealing twice in 3 attempts, only 1 steal, 067 batting average, negative WRC plus. So I don't know. That definitely deserved a promotion. And of course, he gets off to a great start. So yeah, great fielder. If he can just be a line drive hitter, can just be a doubles guy, steal some bases, play some good defense. Again, that's great depth ahead, like Nick already noted. Yeah, Sosa is interesting. Another Arizona Fall League candidate, along with Bradfield, probably Tavian Josenberger. There was one more that seemed pretty obvious that I can't remember on the position player side. But yeah, nice to see Sosa get that boost of confidence, or at least getting challenged by the decision makers in the Orioles player development, just like Steve Martinez, who's just, I hope this kid has good confidence because it says a lot that he's in low A Delmarva and he has shown flashes, but man, don't look at your numbers, kid. So yeah, nice to see starts to get off to a good start. Hopefully that can continue there. And Barnhart, yeah, I think you pointed it out that when he was getting promoted in the Discord, and I was like, he has been pitching well lately. And I look it up, and since July 1st, he had a 0.40 ERA over 22 and a third innings. Only allowed 6 hits, 7 walks with 30 Ks in that period of time. A 1.80 FIP and 0.81 batting average against. So pretty damn dominant there. And off to a slow start this season. It was really kind of rough the first few months of the season, but clearly something clicked and he turned it around, and now he's in Double-A, and I think he is a legit relief prospect in the system. Just had to be patient. And yeah, what is his name? Joe Glassy. Yeah, it's a great name. He doesn't walk. I mean, literally anybody. So I don't know how sustainable it is, how long he can keep this run going, but as long as he's going to pitch that well, yeah, you got to promote him. So some fun ones here. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to say, let's talk about Glassy for a moment before we move on to Jordan Sanchez. For those that don't know a whole lot about Glassy, I don't blame you because we haven't really had a chance to talk about Glassy much at all. He is an undrafted free agent out of Illinois. The Orioles signed back in 2024. He did pitch in a few games for the Shorebirds after signing in the Orioles system last year. And then this season, his year got off to a late start because he was placed on the IL for the Shorebirds in April, activated in the FCL in late June, and then returned to the Shorebirds in early July and has been really good for Delmarva since then, posting a 2.22 ERA with 32 strikeouts against no walks and 24 in a third innings pitch. And in fact, in 33 and 2/3 innings as a pro, Glassy has struck out 42 batters, has walked just one. So truly a command artist, a reliever. Obviously with him being at the lower levels, we don't have a lot of data to back up what could be behind Glassy's arsenal, but the numbers have been good.
Yeah, and he started the year on the IL too and missed like the first 2.5 months of the year. So, I mean, he don't know what the injury was. So he could have. I know he's older, and yeah, like take the numbers with a grain of salt because he's an older college guy who was still in Low-A, but maybe he could have been promoted earlier if he wouldn't have missed the first 2.5 months of the season with whatever injury he had. But yeah, he was the closer for Illinois when he was in college. I 5-pitch mix fastball that sat 92 with 20 inches of induced vertical break. So good fastball. And that walk stuff, that goes back to his early college days. He's just never been a guy, college, summer ball, all of it. He's never been a guy that has walked batters. So yeah, a little bit older, but again, if you can have a good final week here in Aberdeen, and then maybe, I mean, this could be a guy that with a good spring, I mean, starts in Double-A bullpen next year. If he's in, because I think I highlighted him. I think he's been on our outside the top 30 segment the last 2 weeks. And I said he could also be a guy who just gets cut next week. Like, is he one of these guys? Because we see some of these older arms. He was UDFA. You see these guys all the time. They put up really good numbers and then they get released in the offseason. You're like, oh, okay. Clearly the stuff wasn't fantastic. I think there is a little bit of stuff here, though, enough to be interesting. And he's definitely, I don't think he's going to get cut this offseason. And I think he's going to at least get a shot next year, see what he can do.
It's hard to cut Glass.
Let's move on now to Jordan Sanchez. And I think that this is a promotion that we have been waiting for a while that unfortunately was delayed by injury because Sanchez in the FCL this year put up very good numbers. And it seemed like all throughout the FCL season, you were tracking Sanchez, following him, thinking, okay, the Orioles were aggressive promoting Nate George as early as they did. When is Sanchez's time going to come? And really held firm on that through the end of a season in which he posted a 949 OPS in 54 games with 5 homers in the FCL. As I mentioned, an injury cost him some time, but he's back and healthy now. And while it is just a week, we will get to see Sanchez go up against Low-A pitching for the Shorebirds. And it feels like, if nothing else, the Orioles giving him an opportunity to get his feet wet before next season when he will likely start the year in Delmarva as a 20-year-old.
Yeah, I think it's just like a good reward for him if he's healthy and he's completed the rehab. Then yeah, give him a week. Just not only just because you get to see what Low-A is all about for a week and have a little bit of taste to go into the off season with a little bit better idea of what to do. player progression wise, but just to reward a fantastic season. So, he would have been promoted at the end of that season. I think that's fair to say since he got hurt in the last game. So, yeah, just a nice little here you go. And he's 2 for 4 with an RBI in his first game in low A. So, picking up right where he left off. Yeah, very excited to get to watch him this week. And I think next year he could be one of the big breakout guys. I think that's very possible.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to be able to talk about him. Again, like you said, it's only a week, so we won't have too much to go off of. But it will be nice to, when we talk about him, we've actually seen him for the first time. But it's been like 2 straight years of really good seasons, one in the DSL, one in the FCL. WRC plus north of 160 both those years. A lot of extra base hits, lots of walks. Like you see all that, and I think this is really good because I think Esteban Mejia and Jordan Sanchez are probably, you guys add a name here if I'm missing somebody, but like the super young international prospects down in the SCL this year. Esteban Mejia and Jordan Sanchez are like the top 2. I don't know if there's anyone else off the top of my mind that's like, absolutely, this is a dude. But if anything, these 2 guys, I know Mejia only got a couple innings. They shut him down because they reached his innings limit. Sanchez only getting a week. But at least they're getting part of that acclimation process out of the way here to Delmarva. They're here. They can start doing all that off the field adjustments that we've talked about for many years, and all the great stories have been written about that adjustment period there. The biggest adjustment period, they're gonna have to wait till next season when that cold weather hits and it's 40 degrees opening night, or whenever Delmarva plays their first home games. But at least you get a lot of the other stuff kind of out of the way now, which is, I think, could help them have stronger starts next year, because I feel like that was kind of the case. Delmarva is always kind of a rough team to watch in the beginning. We get super excited because there's all these new names, but it gets tough because these are young kids. They're settling in. It's not the prettiest baseball, and then it starts to get really good, and they all leave. But then the college guys come in. So maybe next year we get off to a stronger start at the beginning of the year. But yeah, I went back to, and I found this. I missed this one, but this is from a Eric Longenhagen chat earlier this year. And someone had asked him about, I think it was a Marlins fan, and someone asked which Orioles prospects should the Marlins be targeting in a trade. I don't know which player they were talking about, but some trade. And Longenhagen's response was Jordan Sanchez because of his, quote, huge ceiling. So Longenhagen, big fan out there. So I don't think you just throw a name out like Jordan Sanchez like that if you weren't super intrigued. So glad we get to finally put our eyes on him for the first time.
Yeah, while it will only be the last week of the season, it's still going to be fun to watch Sanchez round out the 2025 season with the Shorebirds. And with that, now we will head into our final segment. Last call, brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing. Located at 1421 Ridgely Street, Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre- or post-game drink. And when you're at the ballpark this year, be sure to check out the beer stand behind home plate where you can get one of Checker Spot's signature beers. The Bird is the word. And now in this last call, we're going to do our usual final segment where we shout out players outside the top 30 portion of our top 50 prospects list for something they've done recently, whether it's been a good game, a good week, or just something interesting in their stat line that we want to point out. And I'm going to start with Nick this week.
Yeah, for my hitter, I went with Ellis Cuevas. A lot of excitement coming into the year. Then he had the hamstring injury that cost him a big chunk of time, so it got off to a late start there, slow start, but did enough in Delmarva to get promoted to Aberdeen a couple of weeks ago. And again, it's been a slow start for him, but still just 20 years old. And last week, he led Aberdeen in at-bats and hit 294, 400 on base percentage, 2 doubles, 3 walks, 3 stolen bases, 812 OPS on the week. So a really solid week, and hopefully this final week of the season, he can have a second straight strong week in the year on a high note. And hopefully next year, no hamstring injuries, and he can have his big breakout in 2026. And then for my pitcher, a lot of relief arms, I feel like we could talk about. I went with Denton Byler, the 16th round pick this year out of the JUCO ranks. He tossed 3 2/3 scoreless relief innings in his second career outing. 1 hit allowed, no runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. A fun project arm to pay attention to. I think I went back and looked because Baseball America included him. They looked at some like data darlings of each draft class, and Byler was included in Baseball America's write-up. Fastball, touch 97, sits 94, above average IVB, high spin pitch mix across the board, changeup rarely used, but gets really good fade. And his sweeper is touched 20 inches of sweep. So Baseball America, again, that article, it's got a fun graphic there. You can see all that stuff for his entire repertoire, but good start to his pro career.
All right, good stuff. I went with my hitter. I went with Edwin Amparo, who has had a very weird season in 2025, coming off of 2024 that was really good. He started in FCL at 19 years old, had a 121 WRC plus there over almost 200 plate appearances, got promoted to Low A Delmarva for the last month of the season in 98 plate appearances, did even better, batted 284 with a 793 OPS, which was a 141 WRC plus, had a great walk rate, really solid strikeout rate for Low A Delmarva. Then this season, he starts off, I want to say he was injured for various parts of the season. Between rehabbing in the FCL, he had a 77 WRC plus in his time, 239 plate appearances in Low A this season. He had a 92 WRC plus, a 195 batting average, and only 3 home runs, 23 stolen bases. Pretty good, obviously. But then he's been promoted to High A Aberdeen a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it started off incredibly bad. Continued to have a poor season, but then since August 21st, granted, it's only 32 plate appearances in 9 games, but he has kind of locked in a little bit here towards the end of the season. 259 batting average, 931 OPS, 15.6% walk rate, 21.9% strikeout rate, 6 stolen bases, 3 doubles, a triple, a home run, 5 walks to 7 strikeouts. So just nice to see him end the year strong. And I'm going to assume that it was mostly injury related, his struggles. But either way, he'll still only be 21 next year. So hopefully he can survive the off season and have a good 2026, which is weird to say. And for my pitchers, I went with the 2 kind of no-name throw-ins from the trade deadline. Chandler Marsh, who was just like the 3rd piece in the Cedric Mullins deal with the Mets, 22 years old. He's been pitching for High A Aberdeen since he came over, and in 8 games, he has 8 innings pitched, a 2.25 ERA, 2.17 FIP, 2.99 xFIP. It's been really good. He's got a 32.4% strikeout rate to an 8.8% walk rate, holding batters to a 200 average, and that's with a 316 BABIP. So really, really strong start for him in his Orioles career. And then Tanner Smith was just turned 23 just after the trade deadline. He has been with Low A Delmarva and then High A Aberdeen for 3 games. And in 3 games since he went to Aberdeen, he's pitched 3.1 innings and has 8 strikeouts to no walks. So he's on that Joe Glassy train. Obviously, very limited sample size, but a 72.7% strikeout rate. Yeah, that sounds sustainable to me. Shout out to Tanner Smith.
I'll stick with the theme of pitchers that were acquired at the trade deadline and shout out my pitcher this week first, and that is Twine Palmer. Palmer last Tuesday in a start against Carolina posted a season high and career high 8 strikeouts. He went 4 2/3 innings in that game, allowing 2 runs on 2 hits and surrendering 3 walks. Palmer, by the way, just turned 21 over the weekend. So happy birthday to him, but a great outing last week against Carolina, and very excited to see what the young right-hander is going to do in the Orioles farm system next season, when we're really going to see those adjustments that the organization will make play out. And then my hitter this week, Douglas Hodo. Hodo was a guy that I think some people were hoping was going to build on a strong finish to 2024 and a stint in the Arizona Fall League to kind of take things to the next level this year. That really hasn't happened. He struggled overall with Chesapeake this season, hitting .213 in 103 games. But he's coming off a very good week. He went 5 for 17 in the Bay Sox series against Reading and went 4 for 4 in stolen base attempts. Some of the highlights of that week include a homer on Wednesday and a 2 for 4 performance in Sunday's finale.
Yeah, don't look at what Twine Palmer did tonight. We'll just leave it to next week.
Yeah, we won't get into that one. And for that does it for this week. So we will be back later on this week, and we're going to talk about prospect and player comparisons. We're going to look at players in the Orioles system have similar traits, talk about where they compare to each other, where they're a little bit different, how we assess their ceilings and floors going forward. So you're not going to want to miss that. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member today. You can join at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus weekly coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50 list. And in fact, our monthly update for September is going to be dropping later this week, and we'll have another one in October. So be sure to sign up and become a patron today to have access to that and a whole lot more. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network. Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. This is something I don't think we've done in the 5+ years of hosting this show. We're each going to pick two prospects in the Orioles system that have some similar traits and ask the others to compare and contrast those players. And really the basis for this is that we get questions all the time from our listeners, especially around the time period when we update our top 50 prospect list, about what is the difference between player X and player Y? Why is this player ranked so much higher than this player? So, and in particular, we had a very good question on a recent episode about Enrique Bradfield Jr. and Austin O'Verne, two center fielders with similar traits, good speed, good defenders, and seemingly fairly high ceilings, but much different profiles when you get beyond that. And there's a lot of cases like that in the Orioles system. So we thought tonight we would dive into those a little bit. And we'll go through the players that we have chosen and discuss their traits. Now, just as a quick primer on how this is going to work, each of the three of us have chosen two players in advance that we want to compare and contrast and ask our other hosts to do the same. There were no rules on whether or not you picked a pitcher or a position player, but if you did pick a position player, you need to find a position player that was similar to the player that you picked. And the same thing goes for pitchers. And I'm going to start with Bob here because he has two right-handers that he wants to discuss that I think are perfect examples for the kind of players we run through this exercise.
Yeah, so I picked them for a reason, but I'll just say it's Levi Wells and Zach Fruit, who are both starting pitchers in the Baltimore Orioles organization, but have been said to have everyone's favorite phrase, relief risk. They're big right-handed pitchers. Wells is listed at 6'2", 216. He's about to turn 24 years old September 21st. And Zach Fruit is 6'4", 212. He is 25 years old. Fangraphs has Fruit with a 60 fastball, 50 slider, 50 cutter, 40 command. Wells, they have 60 fastball, 60 slider, 40 cutter, 30 command, which I think this season has proved that's a little bit better than it was at least when they made that. But both guys that are starting now, but have very high upside, high leverage type of stuff if they were to move to the bullpen. And yeah, I wanted to see what you guys thought about these guys when you compare them.
Well, if you haven't believed my praise for Levi Wells over the last 2 years, read Lance Brzdowski, and maybe he can change your mind. If you don't believe after reading Lance, I got nothing for you. But this was tough. I actually kind of like this because it really forced me. I don't like that we did this after updating our top 50 list. I feel like this would be a good like off-season exercise as well to kind of, because there are some spots I know in my personal top 50 list that I have legitimate questions about and I don't feel comfortable with. And I realized going through this that this really caused you to like sit down and examine two similar guys. So it was a lot of fun going through it. But for me, it was, Fruit. Fruit seems like the bigger guy. He's got that Kyle Bradish look. Delivery, Levi Wells, kind of a little lower arm slot. Fruit's numbers this year, I think you got to take those with a big grain of salt because he missed most of the year with that lat injury. It looks like he's just now looking like himself again. I know he's had back-to-back strong outings in Double A before this recording. I think the Orioles are probably going to continue to stretch him out as a starter and see what he can do maybe next year in Norfolk's rotation or some type of piggyback situation up there. We'll see what they want to do, but he's going to be 26 years old at the start of next season. And I know it's only been a year, not even a year and a half because he's missed most of this year, but the walk rate I haven't seen anything that shows me like the walk rate is improving. And I know this year's numbers are skewed by one really bad outing. He walked 7 or 8 guys, but the walks are just something that were an issue for him back in college. They've been an issue for him in the big leagues. And when I look at his age, it's the Chase McDermott thing. And it's really hard for me to sit here and be like, I want to see Zach Fruit continue as a starter after watching what Chase McDermott's done over the last month. I think he pitched tonight. Don't tell me if he tanked. We'll just keep that going, but ruin that thesis. But like Chase McDermott has been really, really good out of the bullpen for the last like month, and he's put himself back into consideration to be a strong bullpen piece at the major league level. I want to see if Zach Fruit can follow that same path next season. With Wells, like he's improved the walk rate. They tinkered with his delivery. He's added pitches to his repertoire. I think he learned a pitch from Nathan Eovaldi. I can't remember which one, that interview that I think the Baltimore Sun had about him earlier this year. Like he's done a lot of tinkering and adjusting and then got promoted to Double A. And the strikeouts, it took a little bit, but the strikeout rate got almost back up to where they were last year in High A. And the walk rate has dropped significantly. It sounds like 8%. So those walks, his control command look a lot better. They're trending in the right direction. He just went 5 innings, no walks, 5 strikeouts tonight in his second AAA outing. So good sign there. That's the biggest difference for me with these two guys. Yeah, it's huge fastballs. They both touch triple digits. They each have a secondary weapon that they can go to, but it's the control. With Wells, I think there's even more to unlock and as a potential starter. And so that's the biggest difference I see with those two guys.
Yeah, and I think coming into this year, if you had said to me, which of these two is more likely going to end up as a starter, I would have picked Zach Fruit because he has a deeper pitch mix than Wells. And both guys had command concerns coming into this year. But based on the way Fruit pitched last season, it felt like he was maybe closer to addressing those than Wells was. And I fully agree with you, Nick. You got to take Fruit's numbers this season with a big grain of salt because of the time that he missed. Not just the time he missed, but the injury he had. I think we've seen in the last few years how the lat injury can affect pitchers. And it is positive that Fruit is seemingly getting back on track as we get later into this year. But at the same time, he is 25. He's going to be 26 at the beginning of next year. And I have to wonder, is it a little bit tempting for the Orioles to say, let's stick him in the bullpen and see what you can get? Because while there is a starter's profile with that pitch mix, there are still a lot of command concerns across the board with Fruit. Wells still has those command concerns, I think, to an extent, because you want to see how he's able to do at a AAA. And that is one good thing about the timing of his promotion is that he'll have a solid month, a little bit more actually, with the Tides, the chance to adjust to the AAA strike zone and the chance to adjust to the AAA baseball. But if he can show some of the command improvements by the end of this season he showed with Chesapeake, even if the strikeouts aren't there, I'll be pretty encouraged knowing how he's developed over the course of this year. So I feel more certain. I don't think either one is a certainty to stick as a starter, but I feel a little bit more comfortable saying that with Wells right now because I think that because of his health, he's been able to address the command concerns a little bit more than Fruit has, and not to mention being a couple of years younger than him. He's not going to turn 24 until late this month. That's something else that goes in Wells' favor.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what you guys are saying, especially Fruit. It's so hard to evaluate his season just because of the injuries, the start and go nature of his season. Like you said, his last couple starts, I think it's 9.2 innings, giving up maybe 1 run between those two and way more strikeouts, less walks than he had. Yeah, he had 1 game with 8 walks. Levi Wells had a rough first start at AAA, getting used to that ball in the strike zone, 5 walks to 2 strikeouts, I want to say. Well, tonight he went 5 innings, and walked 0, struck out 5. So that's nice to see. And yeah, I agree. I think Wells has a better chance to stick as a starter and could potentially be a really good one. Like Nick said, Lance Brzezowski's top 40 pitching prospects article or Substack came out today, and Wells was on there, and Michael Ferret just missed. So he likes Wells better than Ferret. That's good. Get a little difference of opinion. Trey Gibson was higher, I think, number 13. But yeah, both guys I think could be weapons out of a bullpen. But I think maybe as all of these pitching depth, the pitching prospects start to hit AAA, which we know slows down the flow of the elite talent pipeline. I think guys like Zach Fruit or Zimmer is going to be no choice but to put them in the bullpen when you have Levi Wells, Trey Gibson, Nestor Herman, Michael eventually, et cetera, Cameron Weston. Like, I think you're going to need to see more of these guys. Yeah, it's great to build them up, stretch them out. You can work on things more coming up. But once you get to AAA, you kind of make a decision one way or the other, especially once the depth really starts reaching the top of the system. And yeah, I think Zach Fruit could easily be another high leverage capable relief pitcher, which Orioles are kind of building a mass of all of a sudden since the trade deadline and some guys homegrown. So yeah, I think Wells, potential middle to back end of the rotation starter with a Chase McDermott type escape valve if he can't exactly turn it on. And again, Chase McDermott, inning pitched scoreless with the strikeout tonight. So continues his nice run at the time of recording. And Zach Fruit, I'm not going to say it's completely out of the question. Maybe they're seeing what they need to see from him despite the injuries, and he could come back as a starter in AA. But to me, I think he's going to be a really nice reliever in the long run.
Yeah. It's just his age as well as and I know age, fine. We're not as picky about that, but still, it's like he could be a real weapon for you, like, immediately. But also, like, there's a lot of that depth, but we know somebody's going to get hurt over the offseason. One or two guys, you're going to get into spring training, one or two guys are going to get hurt. Like, the season's going to start, somebody's going to get hurt. Like, it's going to happen, and this is all going to shake out eventually. But even, like, I'm looking at these rosters too, to add to those names you just rattled off, I'd even almost prefer to see Blake Money stick in, like, Norfolk's rotation over. If I had to pick one, Blake Money or Zach Fruit gets the last spot in Norfolk's rotation. I'd want to give it to Money, keep him stretched out, because and that's a testament to, like, how high on Fruit I am out of this bullpen role, and seeing if he can follow that Chase McDermott path.
That is a great point. I also thought of Alex Pham, who should already be in AAA. But yeah, I almost did my comparison between Zach Fruit and Blake Money, ironically enough, before I went with Levi Wells.
Go over to Nick now, because this is actually the only time in this episode, at least until the last call segment, we're going to talk about position players.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys think between Steven Martinez and Thomas Sosa. Two guys who profile as corner outfielders with big time power, clearly very high ceilings, very low floors. Again, like we mentioned last episode, don't look at Steven Martinez's numbers. They're not great in low A, but look at the age, look at the scouting reports. We have Thomas Sosa, I think he's 2 spots higher than Martinez. I don't have our top 50 list. I think he's 2 spots higher on our top 50 list, but I think we are the only list that has Sosa above Martinez. I think every other list has Martinez higher. And I don't know if I'm questioning that or not. Like, which way should we go there with that? I don't know, but I want to hear what you guys think about Martinez versus Sosa.
It's a really good comparison. Sosa is 6'3". There's no point in reporting the international players' weights officially listed, but he's 6'3", apparently. 20 years old. Fangraphs has him at potential 35 hit, 50 power, 50 speed, 40 field. With Martinez, he is 6'4" and more filled out, apparently, at 18. Just turned 18 less than a month ago. He has potential future hit 40, 55 power, 40 speed, 45 field. So that's where I guess ceiling wise, I would think Martinez has a bigger potential. And just, yeah, he's 18. He's already in low A. He's not performing, but he has shown flashes. He's walking 12.2% of the time. I'm not going to tell you how much he's striking out. He hasn't really tapped into his power, but he's getting that experience clearly. And that says a lot that the organization, we've said it before, has that faith in him to go out there and learn from this and have the drive to move past it and do better next year. Whereas Sosa, when he was 18, he was in the FCL putting up a 128 WRC plus. Didn't get that taste of low A till his age 19 season, where he put up a 111 WRC plus in 300 plate appearances and then struggled in high A late last year. So I think we'll really know after next season. Well, of course, Sosa will be in Double A trying to prove himself, and Martinez, at least we'll see if he's on a similar, worse, better track in his. Oh wow, he's still 18 all next year. I just realized for the most part. So yeah, I mean, if Martinez can be close to league average in Delmarva next year, that's going to be huge. Man, to me, Martinez has a chance to be like right-handed, power hitting. Maybe can stick in center field. Most likely not. He's in the right field. This is a really good comparison, and I'm having trouble deciding which way to go with it. I think I'd say Martinez bigger ceiling. Sosa at least is putting up numbers in now Double A, so higher floor. I don't know which one I would take, honestly, if I was given the choice here.
I think for me, what the difference has always been, and this isn't fair to Martinez, I'll admit that, but we've been able to see Sosa in the last couple of years, whereas we haven't really had eyes on Martinez until this season. And the numbers at Delmarva are not good. I had a chance to see Martinez play a few weeks ago, and I can't really say anything jumped out at me one way or the other than that he's very lanky. There's a lot of physical projection there. Moves around in right field pretty well, has some holes in his swing, but these are all things that I think you kind of expect with a teenage outfielder playing in low A for the first time. So there's nothing that really jumps out good or bad at this point about Martinez. Whereas with Sosa, you can see Sosa have a really bad week. Then you can see him come out the next week and play really well. And when he's playing well, you see he's got some really loud tools. That left-handed power, he covers a lot of ground in the outfield for a guy his size. I mean, the height weight listing for Sosa, 6'3", 160. It's not even close to being accurate anymore. He's clearly much stronger than that now. But for a guy his size, he can cover pretty good ground in the outfield. I think the reason that a lot of national outlets are higher on Martinez, and Bob just touched on this, is that they like to hit tool a little bit better. And neither guy is a certainty in really any area of their game. But if you're looking at the two, I could see where going with the better hit tool, what projects as the better hit tool, is appealing. But for me, it's always just come down to, well, we've had eyes on Sosa now for a couple of years. And yes, the results have been uneven and there's still a lot of holes in his game. But when he puts it together, he just looks like a really, really good athletic player.
I will say that it's encouraging for Sosa, the overall numbers notwithstanding. I mean, in high A this year, 191 plate appearances, he had a 111 WRC plus. So while the OPS was only a 716, and a batting average 222, doesn't exactly sound all that impressive. But when you put it into context, it's 11% better than league average. And the walk rate's down to 9.4% from between low A and high A last year, 11.2. But the strikeout rate is also down quite a bit, 24.1%. And again, 191 plate appearances in high A. Last year, it was 1/3 of the time he was striking out and did not tap into his power whatsoever. A 0.14 ISO, where it's 186 in his time at high A this year.
Yeah, I remember Thomas Sosa released a video like in the off season, and he was stepping on a scale, and it said 220. So, which I think is much more believable than the 160. Yeah, when I was going through here with these guys, it's just, I guess my point when I looked at them a little bit more and thought about it more, my point was Martinez is In MLB Pipeline's top 30, Sosa's not. He's in Baseball America's top 30. Sosa isn't. And on Fangraphs, I think Martinez is 34th on Fangraphs, and Sosa's like 20 something spots behind him.
56.
Yeah, it's 22. So like there's a big difference on all these national lists, and we have Sosa has 2 spots higher. And yeah, some of that is because we have watched him for 2 years now. We have more data on him, but at the same time, I guess my whole point was that like when Thomas Sosa was in the FCL, he was a year older than Martinez was, but still only 18 years old. And Martinez put up a 111 WRC plus this year in the FCL. Thomas Sosa put up a 128 WRC plus in the FCL with a strikeout rate that was 7% lower. Sosa also was a wild man on the bases. He had like 30 stolen bases last year. He's not stealing bases this year. He missed most of the year, but I wonder if that's because the injury was an ankle or lower leg injury. So I wonder if they were just like, well, you can run next year, but we're just going to pause this. We need you healthy. We need you taking at bats. So we're just going to shut that down this year. Who knows? Or he's bulked up to 220 now and he's just gotten too big. And they're like, we're not going to worry about the stolen bases. Either way, like Thomas Sosa's put up equally or better numbers than Steven Martinez at the lower levels of the minor leagues. And I know a lot of people will point to apparently behind the scenes, Steven Martinez is put up Samuel Basayo type batted ball data. It's like exit velos and hard hit rate. And Martinez signed for almost $1 million, and he was connected to the Yankees originally. Orioles took him away from the Yankees. Thomas Sosa signed for half that, I believe. But we know Thomas Sosa was putting up exit velos north of like 112 miles an hour as an 18-year-old himself. So without having the hard numbers in front of me, I imagine those numbers, Sosa's numbers, look pretty similar to Martinez's 2 years ago, 3 years ago when he was his age. I don't know. I just think I guess my whole point when looking at it was if Martinez is getting all this national love and hype, I think Thomas Sosa should be getting a lot more as well. And I think the Orioles are telling you that again, he rarely played this year. And they're like, nah, you're still good. We know you're 20 and you played 40 games this year in high A. Go ahead up to double A. You're ready.
And before the season even ended in high A, it was the week before. Like you could see if it was like, oh, season's over. Go ahead, play for a week. No, he's going to get 2 weeks.
They didn't bring any of the draft picks up.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were like, we need to make room. We think you're ready. Go get a challenge. They're like, no, you're ready. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. I have to imagine, at least from the national perspective, that Martinez got the big bonus. It's his age. It's his ceiling. No shame for Martinez being that high. Just a little bit of sleeping on old Thomas Sosa there.
I think if just one of them clicks, you're going to have a pretty unbelievable player on your hands.
Completely agree on that one. I'll go to my picks now, and I've got 2 pitchers who have both made a lot of noise this year. We've talked about both of them a lot this season. That is Esteban Mejia and Michael Ferret. And I'll start with Ferret, who is now a few starts into his AA career. And as of our recording, 15 strikeouts and 14 to third innings pitched across 3 starts for the Bay Sox, 1.88 ERAs, and 1.58 ERA this season, and 74 innings pitched between high A and double A to go along to 2.39 FIP and a 2.72 xFIP. Mejia, meanwhile, has burst onto the scene nationally with a fastball that can top out at 101, sometimes 102, according to reports, and a hard slider, and a changeup that has command issues, but when it's on, it's a pretty special pitch. And Mejia has gotten a lot more love nationally this year than Ferret has. We've seen Mejia on the top 100 list for Baseball America. He's risen up several other lists. And while Ferret has made some gains himself, there doesn't seem to be the same kind of buzz around him. And I suspect some of that might have to do with the time that he missed because of an injury and because the Orioles were a little bit conservative with him at Aberdeen when he came back from that back injury. But still, you look at the numbers this year and you look at the improvements he's made since he entered the Orioles farm system, whether it's been velo uptick, the addition of the kick change this year. Ferret has a pretty clearly refined pitch mix that's only getting better. And in our most recent public top 50, we had Ferret at number 6 on our list and Mejia 13th. Yet most national lists right now are going the opposite of that. So I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's kind of, again, Mejia's got that ceiling you can dream on, but he's pretty far away right now. And again, not discounting his status as a prospect, at least according to us, versus Michael Ferret. But and unfortunately, Ferret, I think, might be out for the season with the hamstring injury that he suffered in his last outing. But man, what a season! Despite all the health concerns, he lowered his walk rate to 7.4% combined between high A and double A with a 32.3% strikeout rate. So raised the strikeout rate, lowered the walk rate, just seems to be getting better. And he's only 21 years old himself. Mejia, obviously 18, but Ferret's a young stud too, who's still gaining strength. And I think getting stronger will probably add some velocity before he gets to the major leagues. And he's got a bigger arsenal. He's got better command, obviously, at this point in his career. To me, Michael Ferret is like Trey Gibson-esque, but younger and more ceiling than a Gibson, who obviously we love. And Mejia, he's far away, but he's got ace upside, so bigger ceiling. I could also see him never making the major leagues. He could get hurt. He could just never find the command. Or maybe if you're looking at the happy medium, super powerful relief arm or mid to back of the rotation starter. Love them both, but give me Ferret. He's closer. He's got more tools at this point in time in his holster. And yeah, I like him more than Mejia, who I also really enjoy, especially once we got to see him. The hype kind of made more sense to me than just reading the reports. But yeah, give me Ferret in this one.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of fun similarities here between these two. Like the height, they're both 6'3". Ferret was the skinny JUCO kid. I always said right after the draft, like he made Blaine Knight look like he had some weight on him. If you remember how skinny Blaine Knight was, Michael Ferret was a beanpole. But he added weight right off the get, right after he was drafted. He added 15 pounds or so. Mejia could get to that same size as Ferret here over the next couple of years, only being an 18-year-old kid. So interested to see what Mejia's stuff looks like when he starts to fill out physically. But yeah, obviously the big separator there is the fastball. Like Mejia sits higher than what Ferret touches, I think. I think Mejia's like he's touching, like Zach said, 101, 102. He's in the upper 90s. Ferret's like 93, 95. I think he's touched 97. He might have touched 98. But both kind of similar deliveries, I think. If you read the scouting reports, they both talk about this cross-body delivery that adds deception. But obviously with Mejia and that fastball velo, I think that takes his fastball to a whole nother tier. Even though Ferret's the hoppier offering, he can't match Mejia's velo. I agree with Bob in that, like the deep pitch mix though. It's the control's gotten a lot better. The walk rate dropped significantly across 2 levels this year. Mejia, though, I think you're talking about ceiling and dreaming on the pitcher of who he can become, yeah, I think Mejia is in a tier above Michael Ferret. But also, like I've talked a lot about, and it seems like every national list, if you read the reports and how they view these two guys, I think everyone would agree. Like Mejia is clearly a tier above Michael Ferret, and think that he could be like a top of the rotation arm or close to a top of the rotation arm, and Ferret maybe a back end guy. But I've talked about this before, how Ferret, like right after the draft, he completely revamped the secondaries. He added multiple ticks to his fastball. He added 10, 15 pounds to his weight, and he went out and threw almost 100 innings of spectacular baseball last year. And he misses a big chunk of this year, doesn't go on rehab, goes right back to Aberdeen's rotation. And yeah, it was limited innings to start with, but was back like he never left. And now he's been promoted to Double-A. Unfortunately, yeah, it looks like his season's over, but I think there's a lot more in Fred's tank than what some other outlets think is in there. So yeah, this is a really good one. I think both have, if you read public reports, I think a lot of people have some issues with both of the fastballs, like shape and command of it. But I just think Ferret's already shown that ability to tinker and tinker and tinker. and unlock more in his game. And I think there's still a lot more there to unlock that he has all the tools in his tool belt to unlock a little bit more. So you don't have to squint very hard to see a back end starter with Ferret. And I think you could even easily see like a mid rotation type arm here at his best. And Mejia could have 3+ offerings and be throwing 100, 101 into the 5th, 6th inning of a major league start as a number 1 in a rotation. Sure. But there's a long way to go there. And he could never regain that control. And like I talked about with Levi Wells and those guys earlier in the show, I like seeing Ferret's immediate increase or decrease in the walk rate. I think that's going to be pretty promising next year. Is hopefully he gets to. I don't think he's going to spend much time in AA next year, and he'll force the issue and get into that Norfolk rotation, no matter how deep and how many arms are up there next year.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, I actually think, and I think again, just to bring it, Trey Gibson, just because I think he's our best pitching prospect right now. I think Gibson has Cobb Radish type upside, and I think Michael Ferret has top of the rotation type upside too. Maybe not as loudly as Mejia potentially in those types of arms, or even Grayson Rodriguez, but I think Ferret could still take another big jump up in stuff here. I just think there's still plenty more growing to do and developing for Ferret. Whereas I think Gibson's pretty much what he is, and what he is really good. But I think Ferret still's got another level to reach.
Yeah. People still don't trust the Orioles pitching development. And so if they have to work and look into the stuff, I think they're going to be a little bit more cautious and not as optimistic versus they see Mejia throwing 102 miles per hour and they're like, that kid's got it. So they're latching onto that. But yeah, when I think you compare these two though, like again, in comparing them, we're not taking anything away from the other guy, but I think you see that Ferret's really kind of slept on here.
That's a great point, Nick. I think with Mejia, there was just that, I just talked about a minute ago with Thomas Sosa. There was a certain loudness factor to his game. Mejia has that with the fastball. Ferret on a good day is probably going to be, sitting 93, 95, touching 97, 98. And it's going to be a lot of good downward movement with his pitch. It's a little bit of hop to the fastball, but all of that doesn't draw your attention the way that someone regularly pumping 100 miles per hour does. And we know how rare that is and how special it is. So if Mejia can stay healthy, he can improve the command of his pitches, maybe mix in a 4th pitch. The ceiling is astronomical. And I think that that's where a lot of national outlets have gone. But I agree with everything that you guys have said about Ferret. He's made tremendous improvements in the last 2 years. And I think there's even more left in the tank just based on the fact that we've seen a velo increase. We've seen the Orioles take what was his worst pitch in the JUCO ranks, his changeup, and turn it into a true weapon. There's still more tinkering that can be done here.
And because of that injury, and they kind of, I don't want to say baby him, but they definitely limited his innings pretty heavily the second half of the year. Like you never got to see him truly unleashed this year and see what he could really do. So good sign going into next year, I think.
We'll now head into our final segment of the night. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing. Located at 1421 Ridgely Street, Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre- or post-game drink. And when you're at the ballpark this season, be sure to check out the beer stand behind home plate where you can get one of Checker Spot's signature beers. The Bird is the word. And now we're going to turn our attention to the major leagues for this last call segment. We're in the final month of what has been a pretty long and challenging year for the Orioles, but one of the things that has made the team a little bit more fun to watch in recent weeks has been an influx of prospects as well as players returning from injuries. But some of the players that have come up from AAA in recent weeks and made some noise include Jeremiah Jackson, Dylan Beavers, and Samuel Basayo. And in this last call segment, we're going to focus on just Beavers and Basayo and try to guess which of those two players is going to have the better final month. Now, if you look at their stats to this point, you can see that Beavers is making a little bit easier adjustment to the major leagues than Basayo has, but Basayo has certainly had his moments at the plate and has looked decent as a catcher as well. Showed off a good arm in the Boston series. So very excited to see what these players do over the final month, but ultimately, who has the better September? And I'll start with Bob on this one.
It's a good question. I think like you said, Beavers has definitely got off to the stronger start. Overall, 162 WRC plus, walking almost 16% of the time. But he is striking out more than Basayo, 26.3% of the time before Tuesday night's game at the time of recording. A 146 ISO, a 469 BABIP. So that's certainly going to come down a little bit. But still, you got to love the approach. The play, the at bats that Beavers is having are fantastic. He looks like an old pro already out there. His defense looks solid, other than the one play with Gunnar Henderson coming out and kind of tripped him up a little bit there. But very happy. A 0.6 WAR already in his short time, while Basayo's batting 217, 81 WRC plus, 0.2 WAR, 6% walk rate, but an 18% strikeout rate, only a 250 BABIP. I think, and it just seems like Basayo is getting more and more comfortable at the majors now after 50 plate appearances. On Monday, he had 2 doubles, and he walked in his first plate appearance today, again, Tuesday night at the time of recording. So he seems like he's getting more comfortable. I'm going to bet on Samuel Basayo being a fast learner that, as I've said many times, he's like a snowball rolling downhill. I think that trend's going to continue at the major league level, and I think he'll end the season strong, and I think Beavers will as well. But I just think, as far as what the players can't control, I think it's going to even out a little bit, and Basayo ends up with the better month.
Yeah, and I think he's having a quite the West Coast trip here. But I just think because Adley going down and he's being forced behind the plate, my first thought was, all right, if he's going to work behind the plate more, like, how much of the bat are we truly going to see? Like, how's that going to affect him moving forward this year? But I think from the more and more you hear about Basayo and the more people we've talked to about Basayo and thinking about it a little bit more, I almost would bet that he's got the contract done. That's done. He's moved past that now. He's separated from that. He can chill. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's worrying about it anymore. He can just sit and play. He's got a good number of at-bats under his belt now. He's a lot more comfortable. He's doing a lot of things right that even if they're not showing up in the box scores, he's doing a lot right. That is very impressive. I would almost bet that because he's going to be seeing more time behind the plate to close out the year, he wants that, and that's going to excite him. And so I just think it's all going to come together, and he's going to have a pretty explosive final month of the year. Again, both these guys, just the fact that both these guys are settling in so well already is amazing to see. I wish Kobe Mayo was also hitting his stride. That would have been the icing on the cake of the end of this season, to have that trio really hitting their stride. Colton Cowser's had a good stretch there as well. It would have been amazing into the year with so much optimism going into next year. But I'm not going to be too upset and too picky by watching Beavers and Basayo both kind of mash over their first month or two that they're going to get here in the major leagues.
I kind of I'm not sure how to feel about the catching side of the equation for Basayo, because my first thought goes to, if he has to catch more than the Orioles were maybe expecting that he would when he was initially promoted, that's probably going to take away from the bat a little bit. But at the same time, one thing that kind of makes me believe that Basayo is going to end up having the better month than Beavers is the strikeout rate. The fact that Basayo has managed to maintain a strikeout rate of 18%, which, for comparison's sake, that's lower than the 21% mark that he had at Norfolk and lower than the 19.5% mark that he had back in the 2023 season between 3 levels. So you get a sense that if he's able to keep the strikeouts down and keep putting the ball in play, it's going to start falling for him. Could I see Beavers cooling off a little bit? Yeah, I could, because he's gotten off to such a fantastic start. But he's doing a lot of things right as well. So I give a slight edge to Basayo here, but I think both players could finish out pretty strong this season.
I actually think, how some guys, the difference between AAA and the majors, where it's the pitchers can be a little more fine with their command and hit their spots more closer to the zone. I actually think that kind of plays into Basayo's hands a little bit, because he's such a bad ball hitter. He's like such a good hitter that he knows he can hit pretty much anything. Well, if the ball's going to be more around the zone, then I think he's going to have an even easier chance to hit it. And maybe it'll inflate back to normal or higher levels than we've seen the last couple of years. But he's just such a a special talent that I would not be surprised if he's able to mitigate that.
The correct answer is neither. It's Jeremiah Jackson. He homered already again tonight, so there we go.
He has been spectacular. He's on the longest heater I've ever seen in my life. Maybe it's just who he is.
It has been a lot of fun to watch that. So I'm hoping that he finishes this season strong as well. And for that does it for this episode. We will be back next week. Tentative slate for next week is to break down Delmarva and Aberdeen season. But of course, as there's more news that comes over the next week, we'll react to it on next week's episode. In the meantime, you can check out our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member of our community today. You can join at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus weekly coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50 prospects list. And in fact, our top 50 update for September just dropped this week. So if you sign up to become a patron today, you'll have access to that update, next month's update, and a whole lot more. So be sure to head over to patreon.com and join at the $3, $5, or $10 levels today. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.